Hello everyone and welcome back to a brand new video. So in today's video, we're going to be doing something that I've been wanting to do for a long time, which is to look at the Odin programming language. Now, there's a few reasons why I wanted to make this video, and this is going to be a bit rambly by the way, so you might want to hold on or just skip ahead if you just want to see me do some programming with Odin. But it came down actually to this morning where I was reading this book, Ikigai, which is effectively a Japanese philosophical concept. And there's a little section in this book, if I can find it and read it to you, that kind of made me think, okay, maybe that's a sign. Maybe today I should give this a go, because I had some free time and I wanted to give Odin a go. So the section was choose a difficult task, but not too difficult. The idea that a task, should be difficult enough that it's challenging for you, engaging, but not too difficult that it's boring for you. Not too easy, sorry, that it's boring for you. So that's the general idea. Quotes Bertrand Russell saying to be able to concentrate for a considerable amount of time is essential to difficult achievement. Okay, so maybe that alludes to the fact that if you have a good programming language, that it will help you stay engaged for a longer period of time, and not dealing with all the the foot guns, as it were. But then it goes on to say then, if you're a graphic designer, learn a new software program for your next project. If you're a programmer, use a new programming language. If you're a dancer, try to incorporate it into your next routine and movement that seemed impossible for years. Add a little something extra, something that takes you out of your comfort zone. Even doing something as simple as reading means following certain rules. And it goes on anyway. Right, okay, I don't want to get too deep into that, but I mean, maybe that alluded to the fact that I should go to assembly language and not to a language, higher up in terms of abstraction. But that's one reason why I wanted to look at Odin, okay? And the other reason is because I'm a big fan of Ginger Bill, and it's that simple. I think I've seen him on the Wookash podcast. I think he's a great guy. He seems really cool, down to earth, very smart. The way he talks about, his style of programming and Odin as a project, I get excited just listening to him, and it makes me want to program. And sometimes that's all it takes. I heard Mitchell Hashimoto talk a little bit about that. So Mitchell Hashimoto is the creator of Ghosty as well as Terraform, HashiCorp and such like that, okay? And he talks a little bit about, the reason why he chose Zig as his programming language for Ghosty is simply because he just enjoyed programming in that language. And sometimes you don't need a reason to, you don't need a reason behind why that language is better than all the others. It's just what you enjoy. And I think that, again, that's what's kind of that's what kind of stood out to me with Odin, is the fact that just looking at the language, I've perused through the docs a little bit, not done much, and not written a line of Odin, but it just seems quite cool. It seems like a nice language. It seems quite enjoyable. I like the fact they got vendors in there, which we'll get to shortly. So those are the two reasons why I wanted to learn then. Odin is number one because Ginger Bills just seems like a down-to-earth guy, and number two because that book inspired me this morning. That's legit. it. So what is Odin then? Okay, it's a programming language that is done right. Okay, so it's a general purpose language with distinct typing built for high performance modern systems and data-oriented programming. Not too sure what data-oriented programming is, but I'm sure we'll come on to that shortly. I'll even put a bit of a definition up on the screen for you guys. It's the C alternative for the joy of programming. Now, I haven't decided what the title of this video is going to be or what the thumbnail is going to be. So if it's too clickbaity and I've upset some of you hardcore C programmers, I do apologize in advance. But let me just say this, okay? Something that we can't deny, or at least that I can't deny, is the fact that, you have the C programming language, which is help me understand low-level systems in a deep way. Something that no other language would have taught me. Okay, now if you're going to start programming, for example, my first programming language that I picked up is probably arguably one of the worst you could pick up for a first programming language, which was C#. You can make the case for Python being a good first language, C being a good first language. It's probably, up there with Java and C++ for being the worst programming languages. You could even make the case for assembly being a good first programming language, really. But anyway, nonetheless, forget my point with that. But with C, I think the issue that I have is the fact that it's great for learning low-level systems, but it can quickly become unproductive, and also a bit daunting as well, because again, it's the greatest strength of C, but it's also the greatest weakness. You've got a programming language which effectively allows you to do anything, which is fantastic, but then that can also, you know, again, the guardrails are off, the training wheels are off. If you make a mistake, you've got to really debug and figure that out. It's very much similar to assembly, I suppose, in that sense. Because all C is, I read this somewhere, is a portable, I think I read or heard it somewhere, a portable assembly language. That's all C is. And therefore, you know, again, it's a good language, but, you know, I wanted to kind of go up the abstraction. So that's why I'm learning C. Now, we're going to get straight into this then, and we're going to look at the docs to start off with. For those of you who are probably wondering why I picked Odin, again, I think that's probably where I was going to. It's just because I like the way it looked. I mean, there's other options that we could have looked at. These are the C alternatives that jump to mind, and I might be missing some out. Okay, you've got Go, created by Rob Pike, Robert Griesmer, I think, and, of course, Ken Thompson, which is a fantastic language. I created my first interpreted language using that, following Thorsten Bell's book. That's great. You got Zig, which I've not touched before, but as I understand it, it seems pretty cool. I mean, it's probably the biggest threat to Odin, I suppose, in that sense, where, you know, they see like languages with more safety features and such like that. I don't know about the differences too much. Again, I'm not using Zig. And I also know the Zig is a tool chain as well, where you can quite literally compile your code for different architectures and different operating systems and such like that. So it's pretty cool. I understand the Zig's a cool language as well, and that's something maybe I'll look at in the future. And then finally then, the other one is, I forget it now, there's another one. Of course there's Odin. What's the other one? Jai, there's Jai as well, J, whatever you want to call it. That's one that's currently in beta, so it's something that I probably would not touch until it comes out. And there's one more. I feel like there's one more C alternative. Go, Zig, Jai. Right, I think people are going to be mad at me for this. It was Rust. Rust is the one that I forgot. Okay, so, you know, again, Rust is, I guess, it's not C-like, you know, it has its own different way in which it handles memory, but it's a very safe language. So, you know, there's a lot of good options out there. Odin jumped out to me. Don't be mad at me. Enjoy the video, and let's see what we can learn from this. Right, so with regards to Odin then, okay, it's used in production. So there's a company called JangaFX, which actually I think Ginger Bill works for, and it's his, I'm basing this off of the Whatcash podcast, which I watched. So it's his friend's company where they create a real-time visual effects engine for different sorts of physics, I believe, so, or different sorts of elements. So not heard of this one before, but I have heard of ones he's talked about previously, which is Embergen, which is like fire and such like that. Got Liquidgen and Geogen as well. Okay, so really cool project, cool company. Now, this is a good, you know, example of Odin being used in production. Now, let me say one thing as well before we get into the looking at the docs. People who are thinking about learning Odin for to get into software engineering, you can make the case that it would be good in the sense that, you know, it's a great programming language because it's like C, similarities, but it'll teach you all the, you know, if statements, case statements, loops, so on, variables. It can teach you all the, you know, the fundamentals of programming. But if you want to get into a career, it's probably not the best language to go for. Not to say that it's not growing in popularity, because I'm sure there is, but it's not really being used. Again, it's just something that I want to learn for fun, and maybe you guys should too, just to get started on the basics if that's something you're interested in. So there's a bit of a video here which I have watched before, which kind of showcases what the project's about. So give that a watch. It is really cool. So yeah, you know, it is used in production. Have a little look. I mean, I'm sure there's some cool projects that could be used with this. So getting started then. Now, I have this installed, but, you know, you guys might not want to install. You might just want to watch this video. If I can get that working, great, fantastic. So you guys can install this then on Windows, Linux, Mac, wherever, okay? So go ahead and do that. If you're on Mac, just brew install Odin, I think will work fine for you. But let's get to it. So the first thing we're going to do is create a Hello World project, which, if I can find it, should be here somewhere as an overview. Here we go. Okay. Right. So I'm actually going to switch this over to here. Do this just to make it easier for you guys to see. Well, let's get started. Okay. So overview then, introduction. This article is an introduction to the Odin programming language. You're assumed to have basic knowledge of programming concepts such as variables, statements, and types. You will see how familiar things are done in Odin, while also being introduced to new concepts. If you haven't already installed Odin, you can read the guide. So again, we talked about this, you guys can go ahead and have a little look at that. So the first one then is the Hellope. So it's the equivalent to Hello World, which is Brian Kernighan's infamous program, Hello World, but their own little spin on it. So let's have a little look at this then. So I've already installed it. What I'm going to do is make a directory called Odin. For now, we'll cd into that, and we will get started. So I'm going to use NeoVim. NeoVim's my text editor for those of you who are new, and it's .odin, which is the only thing that actually probably bothers me about the language, is the fact that it's a .odin file and not .od or something like that. I feel like that'd be better, but that's fine. Beggars can't be choosers, I suppose. Right. So you will see how familiar things are done in Odin while also being introduced to new concepts. If you haven't already installed Odin, we read that already. To begin with, let us start with a modified version of the Hello World program. Right, let's get started. So we have package main, which is something that I've seen on Go's programming, in Golang, okay? But in all honesty, I'm not too sure. As I understand it, the package main is effectively all of the code is going to execute to start with main. I don't know what the actual reason for having that is. Why does that look wrong? I don't know why it doesn't seem as if it's picking it up in my NeoVim editor, but it's fine. We'll just kind of wing it for now. So the next thing we want to do then is import core FMT. So I imagine that's the same as standard library. So whereas we do, in C, we normally do include standard input output library, that's the exact same then, it's the equivalent, okay? So we have main : which I'm interested where that came from as well, because that's something that I see when you go on Odin, the main page of Odin, which we were just looking at just now, you could see, it's got a lot of colons in there, and I don't get what I know he was heavily inspired by Pascal, Pascal, which I didn't really like at the start because I know that it had similarities to PLSQL, and it's just it just looks like such an outdated language, but that's my take. Anyway, let's have a look. So print line, and we're going to do, let's just keep it the same then, hello. And there's no semicolons as well. I wonder if I included a semicolon, would I get an error? Doesn't look like I have got an error. We'll just leave that for now. Right, so I think that's all we have to do. I'm just going to write that file, and what I'm going to do is create a new tab, and we're going to compile this by doing Odin run dot hello. There we go, fantastic. So that works. So right, save this code to a .odin file, then compile it using Odin run, and then whatever the directory of the file is. So for the current directory, you can just do Odin run dot, and that's fine. The run command compiles the .odin file to an executable and then runs that executable after compilation. If you do not wish to run the executable after compilation, then you can just use the build command instead. So let's take a little look at this then, because as I understand it, that wouldn't have created a file. It didn't. So it didn't create an executable. We got the main .odin file there, but we haven't got the executable. Okay, so if you guys are using Visual Studio in your terminal, just type in Odin run dot and it'll full stop and it'll work, okay? Right, so if I do Odin build main dot Odin, we get an error. So opt home bin. Okay, so it's asking for the file flag. Tells it to treat like a file as a self-contained package. Okay. Is it because I just have one file and not... right, okay, let's have a look at this. So Odin thinks in terms of directory-based packages. The Odin build, then whatever the directory command, takes all the files in the directory, compiles them into a package, and then turns that into an executable. You can also tell it to treat a single file as a complete package by adding file. Okay, so if I do just the exact same, where I add file there, that has created it. Okay, fantastic. So if I do main, and then I do that. There we are. Fantastic. Okay, so that makes sense. So in effect then, package, so we have, say if I had a bunch of files there and I'd run Odin build, it will compile all of those then into a package, and then it turns that into the executable. Makes sense? As of yet. I mean, I'm not too familiar with packages. Again, I've used Go, but that was going back a while ago now. But I think the idea stands, which is where you have a bunch of different files and it bundles them up into a package that can be run then. So package main is, I'm assuming, telling the program where to start. So that's that. Okay, I hope I've explained that well. Again, I'm new to this. So if you are expert Odin programmers, then feel free to leave comments and all that stuff, okay? So it also says then, you can run, so it says Odin run. Right, okay, so I done build, that's why I didn't run after. But if I remove main, and I do Odin main.odin, oh sorry, Odin run main.odin file, this should, in theory, I think, run the file after it's compiled, which it does. Awesome. Okay, so we've got build and run. Fantastic. Right, so the next thing we're going to look at then, okay, is... I already had that open. Right. Let's just do that. Right. The next thing we're going to do then is let's play around with some variables then. So let's say we have... So a variable declaration declares how... It declares a new variable for the current scope. So x, we can assign a type to that, so it declares x to have type int. We can also do that then with different variables, different variables at once. So let's try that. So if I do x, y, and then int, I don't need that. I don't need a semicolon. That's going to throw me off a little bit, but that's fine. And then if I go fmt.print line, obviously we have to assign a value to it, but just for now, let's just do that. And let's go here and we'll say x equals 4, 3, whatever. So do I get any errors? I haven't yet. Do that. So let's run Odin run main.odin file. Yeah, okay, so prints 3. Now can I... Okay, I'm a bit ignorant here, so forgive me if this is just very stupid. If I just do that, I do y equals 3 as well, 2. Don't know what I'm doing here. No, this is going to give me an error. I just know it is, but I'm just curious what will happen. Oh no, it does work. Wow, okay. Okay, that's pretty straightforward. Okay, cool. Right. Now, that's interesting as well. So if I go back over here, you can see that it says, right, variables are initialized to 0 by default unless specified otherwise. Note declarations have to be unique within a scope. Right. So what is the need? So this is like a Pascal type thing, sorry. And it's also used in PLSQL for assigning, which makes sense. It's like the walrus operator, because on its side it looks like a walrus. If you didn't know that, yeah. So we have x assigned to 10, and then he's redeclaring it. So that can be done, I'm assuming. 2030 not allowed since Z exists already. But it allowed it. It's a bit confusing because it's declarations have to be unique within a scope. So we have x is 10 and then x is 20. So redeclaration of x in this scope. So I'm assuming that's allowed. But then he's doing it again by here. So let's try that. Maybe if I go up here. Right, so x It's going to take me being a bit of an idiot, by the way, just to get this all figured out, so you're going to have to bear with me. 20. So if I do print, oh sorry, fmt.print line, and I done x, and I do, oh. Then we run that. Yeah, so that doesn't work then, okay. Right, so we can't redeclare a variable in this scope. Okay, right. Okay, so it doesn't work. I was under the impression because he had done it here, but he didn't say not allowed that was going to work. That's why that was throwing me off. Okay, so we can't, if we create a variable, declarations have to be unique within a scope. Okay, that makes sense. Okay, we'll move on from that. Assignment statements then. The assignment statement assigns a new value to a variable location. So we have a variable called x, which is of type integer, and we assign the value 1, 2, 3 to that. Declares a new variable x with type int and assigns a value to it. Assigns a new value to it. Okay, so is this to do with making something a constant then, where it can't be changed, and this isn't? So if I was to do, for example, int, and then I was to do, oops, I don't know what I'm doing. Here we go. So if I was to do this, this might work fine. Yeah, that works fine. Okay, right. Okay, so this is effectively using it as a constant then, I believe. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong. I do apologize. So that makes sense. So equals then is the assignment operator. So why isn't he explained here what the walrus operator is used for then? I would have thought he would have. That's fine. Oh wait, okay, never mind. Patience is a virtue. Right. You can assign multiple variables with it. So we have x, y, 1, hello. Declares x and y and infers types from the assignments. And then obviously if we, ooh, right, what would happen if that was the case then? Oh, right, no, sorry, because he's changing y. I thought he was effectively, wait, yeah. I need to try this myself. It's the only way to learn, I suppose. So we have x and y. We'll send the value 1 and hello. And then we're going to say y, x, by, and 5. And then let's print x and y out. Oh, no. Oh. Right, okay, since I accidentally shut that down. Right, let's run that then and see what happens. What is it doing there? Right, so I'm only printing x, hang on, y as well. Yeah, so that's interesting then. So it's only when you can't use the walrus operator twice. You can only assign it once using that. Let's try that. Yeah, so that works. Okay, so earlier this didn't work then, so we can't use the walrus operator twice because we're redeclaring the variable. That doesn't really make too much sense to me at the moment. I'm sure it's so simple and I'm just missing the point of it, but that's that for now, I guess. Right, so yeah, effectively then we can use the walrus operator to declare a variable, and then we can effectively change that by just using the assignment operator. So I suppose that makes sense. Is it because we just create no, it can't be. Right, let's when all else fails, must be a reason behind that. Yeah, so it's because, so that's just for declaring the variable, but we can reassign it to mean something else. Is that what it means? Because, right, okay, yeah, right, because we're trying to, right, we're declaring a variable x, so we can't redeclare that variable x, but what we can do is declare the variable x and then assign a new value to x. That must be why. Okay, it clicks. I think. I don't know if that's right still, but so yeah. Yeah, no, I think that's the reason why. That sort of makes sense. That's fine. That's good. I'm not a complete idiot. That's good to know. Right. So literals then. String and character literals. So string literals are enclosed in double quotes and character literals in single quotes. Right, okay. So let's just... If I was to just do that though, would it really make a difference? Would that really make a difference? Let's try it. I think it's good to just play around with the language and see what happens. I mean, I don't know. Yeah, it will work fine, but it's just not treating it as a... It'll treat it as a string or as a character, I guess. Let's try that again. Yeah, okay, you know, because it... Right, because when we declared it, it thinks it's a type string and not a type character. So that sort of makes sense. So if I was to do this, E or whatever, and then we run that again, it should work fine. Yeah, okay. That makes sense. Something we do need to have an understanding of is new line characters. So, you know, how to effectively use these special characters. I don't know what bell is. Let's have a look. So A is an escape sequence for alert or bell. Alright, bell character in Odin and many other programming languages. ASCII value represents ASCII value 7. When printed to a terminal or console that supports it, it triggers the system's default alert, sound or visual flash. Okay, that's pretty cool. Okay, let's try that actually. I'm going away from the official docs and actually, yeah, we'll just create our own stuff. Who says AI is completely useless? Alert incoming. Let's try that. And then, so if I use \A, why are they, see, it's using a semicolon in the Google example, so I wonder why that is. But let's give that a go, see if that'll work. I didn't hear anything. I don't know why I didn't hear anything. Is it just because, I mean, I've got a bell up the top. Was that there before? I don't think it was. Maybe that's why. Okay, we'll move on from that. No, what am I doing? Right, okay. So backspace, escape, form feed. Okay, I jumped over this a little bit. So raw string literals are enclosed in single backticks. Raw string literals. Might have to have a little look at that. So, I'm not too sure what that means. Correct. In Odin, raw string literals are enclosed in backticks and do not process escape sequences. Raw versus interpreted strings. Raw strings, backticks, backslashes are treated as literal characters. This is ideal in Windows for file paths or regular expressions. Interpreted strings, double quotes. What does that mean? If you want a hint into my learning process, this is kind of how it goes normally. I don't usually do this on screen, but it does work. So it means the compiler treats the backslash character as just a regular character rather than... right, okay, that makes sense. Yeah, good, right, okay, yeah, that makes sense. Because, for example, it might think backslash capital W is something, or it might just... Yeah, okay. No, that makes sense. Right, the length of a string can be found using the built-in length. So if I was to do, let's say x, and we say length. Well, so let's say we create a variable. We'll call it x or cx equals. Put my name. Actually, no, we'll do this. Okay, and then we'll say length of, where is my x, no, we'll print x, so that should work. No, lem requires that its results must be handled. Can I just store it? Ah, right. Right, I see what I'm doing. Okay. Am I doing this right? Let's try and keep it similar to, if I was to do that, then have to be specific. This should work. There we go. Perfect. Okay, so yeah, that's quite handy. That's quite nice. Yeah, right. So that's pretty cool. Yes, it has its own length built-in function. So let's have a little look at numbers then, and comments will be the same as normally. I'm interested in reading the packages, which is what I wanted to talk about. I think I mentioned briefly earlier, which was to do with the idea of vendors. So quite literally, it comes standard with like all of these different, these different vendors that we would find useful in C. So for example, Raylib, where you can create 3D graphics and games, Vulkan, OpenGL and things like that. I don't know if Vulkan's actually one of them, but I imagine it is. And that is quite cool. So we'll have a little look at that shortly as well. Maybe that's what, right, we'll read numbers very quickly and then we'll jump to packages and then we'll have a little look at that. Then we'll try and get a simple Raylib program running. Right, so number literals are written to the similar to most other programming languages. A useful feature in Odin is that underscores are allowed for better readability. That is quite cool. So 1 billion would look like this, which does make it much more readable. So that is quite nice. A number that contains a dot is a floating point literal. So this would be 1 and then 9 zeros after, I believe, if you use E9. Yeah. If a number literal is suffixed with I, it is an imaginary number literal. So 2i, 2 multiply the square root of -1. Binary literals are prefixed with 0b, octal literals with 0o, and then hexadecimal literals, as we always expect it to be 0x. A leading 0 does not produce an octal constant, unlike C. In Odin, if a number constant can be represented by a type without precision loss, it will automatically convert to that type. So x, int, 1.0, a float literal, but it can be represented by an integer without precision loss. Okay, that's quite cool as well. Constant literals are untyped, which means that they implicitly convert to a type. So x is typed as being of type int, x equals 1. 1 is an untyped integer, literal, which can implicitly convert to int. Not sure I understand what he's trying to get across there. I will say as well, because again, I've talked about this quite a bit, but Mitchell Hashimoto, his philosophy in terms of learning new programming language is quite literally doing this, almost what we're doing now. So that's interesting to kind of think about if you guys are planning on learning a new language, if it's C, if it's Odin or whatever. Quite literally, you can peruse docs, read everything, and it just kind of gives you an understanding as to what features are in the language, and then you can go back and look and say, oh, I know to do this. And he talks about how he was in, I forget what the conference is, it was a Go conference, where there was a lot of useful things in the docs, but the people didn't see, and he was like kind of explaining to the crowd, like, this is free, it's here, and it's been talked about in the docs, but people don't know about them, so here they are, sort of thing. So that's quite cool. So I would strongly advise you to do this, even if, again, you just kind of, go about doing it your own way. And reading it by yourself, that should be fine. I mean, I seen that Tej de Vries or whatever, who was also on the stand-up podcast. He's quite interesting. You know, he talks a little bit about, well, I think he actually created a video which, like, was him reading the NeoVim docs, which took him like 12 hours straight, which is nuts. But, you know, it is useful. It's a good way to learn, I suppose. So anyway, I don't understand fully what this means here. So x is of type integer. So, and then when we do x equals 1, 1 is an untyped integer literal, which can implicitly convert to int. So let's have a little look. Can you explain this? Let's see what it means. This is a good use of AI, by the way. This is the only use of AI I encourage. Right, this syntax illustrates how Odin handles explicit variable declaration and literal type conversion. So here's a step-by-step breakdown of exactly what is happening in those two lines. So x equals int, this is an explicit declaration. This line creates the variable, but does not give it a value yet. The colon in Odin, colon signals a declaration. The meaning, you would tell the compiler reserve a spot in memory for x and force it to hold the type int. The initial state, because no value is given, is automatically 0, which we've seen that earlier. X equals 1, assignment and conversion. So this line updates the value of the existing variable. So the equals, this is the assignment operator. It copies the value on the right and stores in the variable left. Untyped integer literal, the number 1 written directly in code is called a literal. In Odin, basic numbers don't have a permanent type yet. They are untyped. Implicit conversion. Because 1 is untyped, it acts like a shapeshifter. When you try to put it in x, which is strictly an int, the compiler checks if the number 1 can fit safely into int. Since it fits, the compiler automatically implicitly converts that raw 1 into a formal int type to match x. So that makes sense, I suppose. Why this matters in Odin. Odin's very strict about types. You cannot normally mix different types, like adding an I16 to an I32 without an explicit cast. However, because literals are untyped, you can use the same number 1 to initialize many different types of integers without fighting the compiler. Okay, that makes sense, I suppose. I'm not going to spend too much time on that. Comments, I mean, it's pretty much standard in all languages, isn't it? So we're not going to look at that just yet. Constant declarations then, so use a double colon, is that right? Constants can be explicitly typed like a variable declaration. So y int... right, so instead of the equals, we put another colon and it becomes a constant, if that's right. Constant computations are also possible, so that's quite neat as well. Right, okay. Odin packages, Odin programming packages. Odin programs consist of packages. A package is a directory of Odin code files, all of which have the same package declaration at the top. Execution starts in the package's main procedure. So, so package is a directory of Odin code files, all of which has the same package declaration at the top. So everyone will have a package declaration at the top. Execution starts in the package's main procedure. So of course this is our package main, and all of the code will be executed because of that in the main procedure. Then the following program imports the FMT. Again, this is very similar to standard input-output in C. So part of the core library collection. And this is the bit that I wanted to get into. So as I understand it, and I don't know exactly how it's done, but you can do something like import vendor. And I don't know if I can just do something like Raylib. Now, I'm assuming if I'd get an error if this wouldn't work. So yeah, so, oh, it's because I've got a semicolon. Right, Right. Let's try that again. Great, so that works. So if I do something like this, then what would I do? Raylib dot initialize window. That should work, but I'm gonna double check because I've not used Raylib before, and that's something that I wanted. Again, this is another reason why I wanted to learn Odin, so that I could use Raylib. I mean, I could do that in C as well, which is probably going to be an upcoming video. So stay tuned for that if you're interested. Where we're going to create a simple video, but let's just say simple Odin Raylib program to open a window. I know we have to put 3 values in there, so we have to put the size of the screen and such like that. Yeah, okay. Okay, so is he giving it? Yeah, so you can also give it. Okay, that's quite cool as well. So I wouldn't have to type in Raylib every time. You can change it to RL. So that's pretty cool. I can see the use, how that'd be useful. So let's say we have, we'll just kind of keep it similar, 800, 450, and then we'll say prac. And we'll have, okay, so we haven't touched on this before. Raylib dot window should close. Raylib begin. In fact, do I need this? Yeah, I think I do. Clear the canvas. Don't need that. I think it's just end drawing then. Right, this should work, I think. Let's try it. There we are. All right, that's quite cool. Yeah, so that's something that I wanted to do in the future videos. So if I do that in, you know, Odin, if I do that in C, it doesn't really matter, but it's just something I wanted to look at. But that's quite cool. And that is really cool how, like, think how useful that is. You don't have to go installing all these sorts of packages and such like that. You can quite literally just do import vendor and then whatever it is you want to use. And that is so useful. And I can see that being a massive time saver. So that's certainly something I'm going to play around with in future videos. And, you know, I can see usefulness. Yeah, so I was talking about that Behir. Like, so quite literally you could include Behir, RL, because, you know, you don't want to type in Raylib every time. That can be a bit messy, and also, you know, it's just something that, well, you know, it's best to keep things as minimal as possible, and sometimes, so if I run now, then it should work. So the same, yeah, there we go. So that's pretty cool. So yeah, I mean, that's literally all I wanted to go over in this video, really. I mean, I don't know what else I could have done. I mean, maybe I might make a part 2 to this, because I am certainly going to play around with this. I mean, game dev is not something I've always been interested in, but I can see how you can have fun with this, and it can be quite addicting. So stay tuned for more Odin, for more programming videos, for more, you know, kind of tutorials. It's making me, you know, again, question what I should do when it comes to August, because I want to make sure that I'm being as productive as possible. I'm creating things and I'm building projects, and I just don't know. I question sometimes how useful C could be in that context, because, you know, again, in terms of a learning tool, C is fantastic. And by the way, I'm not discouraging anyone from using C. Use C, and it depends what your goals are as well. Because I mean, you know, if your job is, or your goal is to get a job with programming, then maybe Odin's, I wouldn't probably encourage you to go for Odin. I'd encourage you to probably learn something like Python, or maybe C and then Python. But I wouldn't, you know, I don't know. I just think that, again, you know, it's everyone's personal, everyone has a personal opinion. And there's other languages out there. I mean, I'd have to give Zig a try and all these other different languages. Maybe leave Look at Go again, revisit that, because it wasn't so much I'd done in that going back a year ago, or 2 years ago now. But yeah, thank you everyone for watching this video. As always, I'm very excited to kind of see where this goes, and in a few weeks time I'm sure you can expect me to create more tutorial videos either in C or just carry on playing around with Odin. But let me know what you guys think as well. What do you think? Is Odin the superior language? Is it the best C alternative? I certainly think it is. Something that I would love to do one day, and I'm going to say it here now because it sounds ridiculous because I'm such a small channel, but would be to speak to Ginger Bill. I would love to have him on the channel and speak to him about his reasons behind the designs for the design for the language. But before I do that, I have to play around with her a bit more, because I'm so, by the way, out of my depth saying that, because, you know, he's got, I'm sure, a million and one things to do to talk to somebody like me. But, you know, just, I think if I learn the language, if I get, you know the ins and outs of it, after playing around with C for a bit longer, you know, there's already some stuff in here which just seem like a massive time saver. So who knows? I can see me sticking to Odin for some time, but we'll see. We'll see what happens. Thank you ever so much for watching the video. I look forward to seeing you guys in the next video, and yeah, see you guys. Bye.